It's Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this pretty seal block. Her name is Serena. And just a quick note on where you get the pattern. If you're in the Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club, this is the current pattern. It starts on December 15th, 2019, and it will be in the clubhouse available for you until January 14th, 2020. If you are in the club, look in the notes below this video and you'll see a link to get right into the clubhouse and download your video. If you're not in the club yet, you can join anytime in that month and you'll get immediate access to the video. And there's a link for that too, down below here. So if you're in the club, you get it now. If you join the club anytime before January 14th, 2020, you'll get immediate access to the pattern in that clubhouse. There will be a new pattern on January 15th, 2020. If you are seeing this video after January 15th, 2020, you'll be able to find this pattern in the shop at shinyhappyworld.com. And as soon as that is available, I'll update the links in this video with that pattern link. So one other thing just to be aware of, the video here is really just showing you how to assemble the seal block. If you want to know how I do my basic Quilt As You Go method and the fusible adhesive method that I use, I have a free workshop that takes you through all of the steps for the particular method that I use. There are a lot of different Quilt As You Go methods out there, and this is the method that I use with with fusible adhesive applique. There's a free workshop, and there will be a link to that also in the text just below this video. So everything that you need, look below the video for those links, and here's how to make that seal. Okay, the first thing you need to do is print or trace your pattern onto the paper side of fusible backed adhesive. I use Heat and Bond Light, that is my favorite, and I like the printable sheets because I'm lazy and I don't like to trace. So get it on the paper side of your pattern, and then you're going to roughly cut out all the pieces and fuse them to the back of your fabric. And when I say roughly cut, here's an example. You don't want to cut right on the lines for this stage. You want to cut a little bit outside the lines and a little extra anywhere where there's a dotted line. And I'll show you why in just a minute. So the seal does not have very many pieces. I really wanted to design something easy for December, which is such a busy month for so many people. So you'll have the head. You're going to have 2 muzzle pieces. You're going to have a little chin, and then you're going to have the nose and the eyes. So after you get that cut and fused down to the wrong side of the paper, the next thing you're going to want to do is transfer some of these lines. So on the muzzle pieces, you're going to want to transfer the start of the whisker lines. And you can see I've done that here. Just hold it up to a window and you can see those lines right through the fabric. And I just use a Sharpie fine tip marker, so that works great. On the head piece, you're going to want to transfer the eyes, the nose, and this half of the whisker pieces, not where the muzzle is, but the pieces that are on the face. And those whiskers are going to go off the face. That's okay. Just go right up to the edge. In fact, I draw it. You might be able to see through this light pink fabric well enough to see that I did draw it over the edge, but that's going to get cut off when I cut the edge of the pieces out. So you can see I transferred right on the lines for my whiskers, and I go just a little bit inside the shapes for any of these to mark the position of the applique pieces so that you don't have to get it right on the line when you lay the pieces in place. So after you get it fused down and then all of the lines transferred onto the fabric side, that's when you do a clean cut. And here's what I mean with that. So for the clean cut, get these pieces all down here, you're going to cut directly on any of the solid lines, and you're going to leave a little extra anywhere where there's a dashed line. So the muzzle pieces were the example that I used before. Now you can see I've cut them cleanly on the solid line, and I left a little bit extra where there was a dashed line here. And for these little muzzle pieces, they just kind of naturally become little ovals. So I did that. You can see on the chin piece, cut right on the bottom of the chin and then left a little extra here. This is where it's going to tuck up underneath those dotted line pieces are going to tuck up under the edge of the muzzle pieces. So once you get all of those pieces clean cut, comes the super fun part. And that's what we're going to do here. So I've got my block here. It's already been quilted to the batting, but no backing. That is the method that I use for Quilt As You Go. And the pattern has a link to a workshop that takes you through, it's a free workshop online, and it takes you through all of the steps for the particular method of Quilt As You Go that I use. You can do these on an unquilted block if you like to. I just prefer to do the quilting before the applique so I don't have to go around the applique later. So you're going to peel off the paper backing. And set the pieces in place. So you want to make sure that you set the raw edge of the bottom of his head lined up with the raw edge of the block. That's going to be trimmed away later when you trim it down to size, and it's going to be sewn in so that you have a nice clean edge there, and it looks like the edges of a photograph where his head is popped in. You don't want his head to be floating up here because then it looks like a chopped off head. This way it'll look like a photograph. So get the head in place. Then I like to do the muzzle pieces next. Peel those off. And these whiskers are actually going to make it really easy for you to put them where it goes. So you want to line up the edge, your whisker lines, so that it becomes continuous lines there. And it should overlap the marking where the nose is going to go, because that nose is actually going to sit over these muzzle pieces. So here's our second muzzle piece, and really these two ovals might overlap a little bit. They might bump up against each other. The most important thing is to worry about getting those whiskers lined up, because you want to have nice continuous lines, because you're going to stitch right on top of those lines. Now I'm going to put the chin under. So this is our chin piece. So I'm going to just slide that underneath here now. So I'm going to need to probably remove my muzzle pieces again because I bumped them, but there we go. So now the little chin piece is tucked up underneath the muzzle pieces. And we've got nice clean edges everywhere. So now we're going to do the nose. And that line is going to show me it doesn't line up exactly. It just goes somewhere over that line. So if we've covered that line and everything looks good, then we're good. And now all we've got are the two eyes. There's one eye. And there's another eye. So I'm going to take this to the ironing board and fuse it down, and then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to show you how I draw the rest of these whisker lines so that I have lines to follow when I'm doing my stitching. So I'll be right back after fusing and show that to you. Okay, I've lowered this down a little bit so that you can get a little closer view of his face. And just as a reminder, what we're going to do here is we're continuing the whisker lines. So the lowest whisker is complete. That one starts and ends in his face. But these whiskers, if you look back at the reference pattern, they continue a little bit off the sides of his face. And I want to have a guideline. If they were straight whiskers, I would feel comfortable just continuing to stitch and just eyeballing it. But with them being curved whiskers and having kind of limited visibility underneath the sewing machine once I get it in place, I actually want to draw these lines in. And I'm not too fussy about it. I'm just going to continue on my curves a little bit. So I've got a curve that starts here, starts here, starts here, and I'm just going to continue it down a little bit. And then I've got a curve up here. It starts here, and I'm going to continue that down. I think I want this one to go a little bit longer. Yeah, let's make this one go down a little bit longer too. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And they don't have to be perfectly symmetrical on both sides because actual whiskers are not. So this is the pen I use. This is the pen that I use when I'm marking blocks for quilting. It doesn't matter. It's not erasable. I've never had one of these run, so I've stopped testing it on every individual fabric because I've never had one run. And since I'm going to stitch on it with black thread, I don't care that if a little bit of this line shows through. It's black thread over a black marker, and it'll never be noticeable in any kind of way. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to go stitch around everything, and then when it's all stitched, I'll come back and walk you through exactly what I did for that. All right, here is the finished block. I've done all of the outline stitching. Like I do with all of my blocks, I'm actually going to lift this up so you can see it closer. I outline everything with just a simple straight stitch, but I like to go around things 3 times, and that gives it this kind of scribbly, sketchy look. I want it to look like it's a drawing out of my sketchbook. So let me get this guy centered in here again. Let me just walk you through what I did. I always try to minimize the number of times that I have to stop and start. So around the head, there's nothing for it. You just go 1, 2, 3 and stop. You can't combine the whiskers or the eyes, so you have to do the eyes individually and all the whiskers individually. Just go 1, 2, 3 back and forth, just right over the line that you drew. And I just do once around the eyes because black stitching on a black eye, you can't really see it. Where I was able to really combine things is with the nose, muzzle, and chin. So I started stitching right outside the muzzle on the nose, and I went around the nose once. Again, I'm not going to do the nose 3 times because you can't see the black on black stitching. Continue past where I started, and then pick up on the muzzle and go 1, 2, 3. Hop across in the nose here a little bit to get onto this muzzle and go 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, 1, 2, and then start doing 3, and then I did 1, 2, 3, 4 on the chin, and then picked up and finished the final third here. If you forget to do that, which I did on the pink block that I'm going to show you in a minute, it doesn't matter. You can go in and just do across the chin, and then I would just do 3. I only did 4 because I wanted to get back to where I started. And you can't really see the difference between 3 rows of stitches and 4 rows of stitches, so that makes it a handy way to kind of travel along your lines without having to stop and knot things off. So I mentioned the pink one. Before I take away from this one, I did want to tell you which fabrics I used. So when I did my research on seals, I found lots and lots of spotted seals out there. So I definitely wanted to use one of the Dots fabrics from the Dots Fat Quarter Bundle. And I used the gray because I wanted kind of a natural colored seal. So I used the gray from the Dots Fat Quarter Bundle for the seal, and then these 2 shades of gray come from the Warm Neutrals Fat Quarter Bundle. So I wanted a realistic seal for that. And I used the Pastels fabric bundle for the background. For the pinks, I've been doing these pink on pink on pink blocks, and I decided to do a pink seal. So all of these fabrics are from the Pretty Pinks fabric bundle. Did the same stitching, except like I said, I forgot to pop over and do them out there, so I did the chin on this one as a separate piece, and you can't tell the difference. The other thing that I wanted to point out, one thing that's nice for seals, when I do my research into the actual realistic animal photos, I always am looking at the relation of dark, medium, and light. And seals come in dark and light colors, and their muzzle sometimes has very little contrast with the body, so you could use a muzzle that's a very, very similar color. Sometimes the muzzle is lighter, but more often it is darker. So for both of my blocks that I did, I went with a slightly darker colored muzzle, but you could go with a lighter colored muzzle if you want to. And then the chin where the mouth is always a little bit darker because it's tucked under, so it's always a little bit in shadow. So if you want, even if you're using very unrealistic colors like with this pink seal, but you want it to look sort of realistic, just get the light, medium, dark, the relative light, medium, and dark correct, and it'll end up looking like a realistic seal. So I went with a little bit darker color under the chin and slightly darker color for the muzzle, but not so dark that my whiskers wouldn't show up. So that is it, and I will be back in January with a new Funny Faces Quilt Block of the Month Club. I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World. I'll see you next month.